So, the topic I'm going to be refuting is human sexuality, and the claim I'm going to be responding to was human sexual orientation being determined biologically. The secondary claims that Christine Smith, sorry, I forgot to mention her name, mentioned were that 1, there is a genetic component in determining sexuality, 2, the environment of the womb impacts development of sexual orientation, and 3, homosexuals and heterosexuals have physiological differences that suggest a biological cause for orientation. So for the first one, she pointed out that a man by the name of Dean Hammer did a study where he found a bunch of markers in self-identified gay men and other gay family members, and he quoted himself by saying that he found a statistical confidence of 99% of finding this marker within him, within these gay men. A problem with this study, though, is that Hammer and his colleagues did not find it necessary to check whether any of the other straight men in the family, besides the gay men, share the same marker. So it could have just been hereditary instead of determining sex. And it's also questionable because according to the Federal Office of Research Integrity, he's being held responsible for scientific misconduct where he suppressed a bunch of data that would reduce his statistical research greatly. She pointed out a strong case for hereditary where he also did a study of a pedigree that had found an increased rate of gay uncles or cousins on the maternal side. During the study, he only used the 2% of extremely conservative gay men, i.e. the ones that actually identify themselves as gay. There are no facts to back this up. He does not include any other preference to sex or people that may have suppressed their own sexuality. He did twin studies where there's a bunch of percentages on whether or not gay men or gay women both have this kind of genetic marker. He did a study on gay siblings, but his study did not produce the expected results that he aimed for. But another group under his name reported a second study that supported the gene in homosexuality. However, none of these results, including Hammer's, could support the claim that any single gene can determine sexual orientation. She points out epigenetic markers, and what those are referred to epimarks, are temporary switches that control how our genes are expressed during or after we are born. William Rice, a professor at the University of California, and Urban Freeberg, professor at the Sweden College of Uppsala University, they both state that sex-specific epimarks are passed down from father to daughter or mother to son. Most epimarks don't normally pass between generations and are essentially erased. They both say this explains why homosexuality appears to run in families, but yet has no real genetic underpinning. Moving on to the second topic, there was a study done for prenatal hormone exposure, which deals with genetic stress within a woman when she's pregnant with a typical boy, and how she continues to process, if she were to continue to process more children, that she would have more boys and exclude the girl. She points out the masculinity in the brain that has a powerful support for this topic. The effects of the masculinity in the brain and how it forms have nothing to do with how sexual orientation is, but instead how our body develops, actually. Study for mice was done, since mice are 95% genetically similar to us, where it would just have problems with the afterbirth of mice, where they would have reduced litter size and viability. She also points out a fraternal birth order, which is what I was talking about, how men continue to be born. Males and females biologically have a 50-50 chance of being born. We've seen it done plenty of times with Punnett squares. There's no real evidence to show that a maternal immune response to male fetuses, since she explains that it's only being a hypothesis being presented. Third and final claim, there was a study done by Simon Levay at 1991, where he claimed that the hypothalamus in the brain for humans, and men specifically, were larger than women, and the hypothalamus in heterosexual men was larger than homosexual men. Though in fact, he has no evidence to explain the orientation of women he examined. All of the gay men tested also had AIDS, which is known to affect brain structures, and his evidence is criticized at the moment due to the fact that some of his gay examples have larger brain structures than those of straight men. So the basis of who has a larger brain or what sexual orientation of a man is proven false. And in conclusion, these three facts for genetic components, the environment of the womb, and that physiological difference do not determine sexual human orientation.
All right, well, this is an interesting response because this is one that directly attacks the grounds that are being used by the advocate in supporting their point, and you've got very specific criticisms that you make. The Hammer studies, for instance, there are challenges to the statistical confidence issue. You claim that there's no indication of the markers that's being cited, and there's even an argument that says that this researcher is guilty of scientific misconduct. I do think you need some sourcing on some of those points because those are pretty dramatic charges on the particular issue. And I thought that they were reasonable points to make that raise questions about whether or not that research is reliable. On the twin studies, you said they didn't get the results that they were looking for, and a second group found those results, but there was no link to any single gene. Again, I think I know that you're doing research here. I know that you've got a source that you're citing, but you're not presenting the source in the presentation, and that is where I have the problem with what's going on. And then you've got a follow-up with the epigenetic markers and the research from Rice and Friedberg. That one was more clearly cited, and I think you need to be consistent like that most of the time. On the second point, you run into some of the same kinds of issues. You've got good explanations about why the inferences being made are not reliable because the data is not really testable. The mice study, for instance, you spend more time defending the mice study than you tell us what the results of the mice study were, and that was a little bit odd. I think you need to give us better data on that. And then there's a good criticism, for instance, of the last study, which basically says that there are particular things in the sample that the advocate used, not that the advocate used, but that the researcher used, that suggest that there would be bias. You know, the pool of people, they're likely to have different brain elements because of their physical conditions or because they were unique subjects. And I thought that most of that is a direct attack, like I said, on the ground. So it's an interesting point that you're making here. I didn't hear any counterclaims on the issue, which is perfectly fine. You're not required to do that. Although, and since you had an elaborate amount of information to talk about these particular studies, I think that was good. The only thing that I think was really missing was a little bit more defense about where your criticisms came from. All right, thank you.